What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the College Sports Connection podcast, where Double A, Alex, and AJ host the Mid-American Conference Best.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the College Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Joining me as always, AJ the Guru.
What's going on, everybody?
All right, AJ, welcome back. We have another exciting week of our Year of Maction segment. 3 down. We've got 9 to go, knocking out one of them tonight. This week we have joining us from the University of Akron football program, we have Jarrod Pughsley, an offensive lineman, formerly played with the Dallas Cowboys, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Kansas City Chiefs, where he made 3 starts, 2 regular season, 1 playoff game. Went to Lima Senior High School, my alma mater. Most notably in his time in the NFL, started against the almighty Tom Brady-led Patriots. Jarrod, thank you so much for coming. Super excited to have you, man.
Appreciate y'all having me on.
Absolutely. So, Jarrod, obviously you are not playing right now. You are in Missouri, you said. What is it like being a new dad settling down in your post-NFL career?
Honestly, I think, the NFL is just everybody is different. To me, it's kind of almost a me to an end. And I knew that ultimately I wanted to just settle down and have a family. And, as we were talking a little bit offline, like the timing is crazy having a baby during Corona. But honestly, it's been like a blessing in disguise because like every day I'm just at home with my wife and my son, Amir, and it's awesome. So everything's good.
It's ultimately such a cool thing to see you, knowing you for as long as I have, all the way back in 6th, 7th grade, and to kind of follow your career through Akron. Kind of talk to us a little bit. Obviously, you played football in high school. You played all 4 years. You played basketball your senior year. You were recruited, but not by Division I schools. You want to kind of talk about that and how you ultimately ended at Akron?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to just shout out Alex because we were in choir together, killing it. So that was all awesome. No,
good old Masterworks.
That was awesome. Anyway, so I wasn't just a jock. Anyway, but no, so yeah, leaving high school, we only won one game every year in high school. So we weren't highly recruited. And ultimately, I got a couple offers, one from Finland, and this is definitely nothing against Division II or Division III schools. Like, obviously, they're there for a reason. But I myself felt like I was good enough to play in Division I. And I remember having a sit-down conversation with my mom and saying, "Hey, Mom, I think I'm good enough to play Division I." So she said, "All right." And I had a couple preferred walk-on offers to University of Akron, Bowling Green, and Toledo. And ultimately, I chose Akron because I like the facilities and the coaching staff that was there when I was recruited. And I felt like it was far enough away from home to like be away, but at the same time, like I could come home at any moment. But yeah, a walk-on.
Yeah, sure. So that preferred walk-on, what's the difference between that and just, I guess, a regular walk-on?
Yeah, that's a good question because honestly, I never knew about preferred walk-on until they offered me this that position. But a lot of times, walk-ons, like in college, you'll have walk-on tryouts where the team will just say, "Hey, anybody who goes to this school, there's an open tryout. You can come and try out." But a preferred walk-on is like, "Hey, like we really like you. We want you on the team. We don't have enough scholarships for you right now, but we want you to come in like during training camp. And when the when the freshmen report, we want you to report with them as well. You just won't be on scholarship." So yeah, I was a preferred walk-on for 2 years, and then I gained my scholarship after 2.
So, you talked a little bit about your high school days and kind of struggling, only winning a couple games here and there and becoming a walk-on. So when you stepped foot on Akron in the facilities for the first time, did you feel that extra chip on your shoulder knowing a lot of these guys, do come from high-profile high school programs and, here you are as a walk-on, getting ready to earn your spot. Did you feel that chip going in there?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. And out of all my interviews, I never had that question. So thank you. But, I wouldn't say necessarily a chip. It just was, all right, this is something I have to work towards. And honestly, at the end of the day, and we'll get to the NFL part, but I'm grateful for having to go through that grind, and I had to do something similar in the NFL because I can never be complacent, So, coming in as a walk-on, I saw a lot of players who were similar caliber as me, but they were on scholarship, and you could just tell they weren't like hungry for it. So I won't say a chip. I would say like I was hungry for it because one, I don't come from money, and my first year was paid for through scholarship, thankfully. But I knew that I couldn't do 5 years, 4 or 5 years on my own without taking out a bunch of student loans. So my goal was I need to get a scholarship. Like before I got playing time, like I needed to get a scholarship. So, that was something that I really worked hard towards. And then after I got the scholarship, it was like, all right, like let me try to get play time, and then let me become a starter.
Sure. And I had a friend who was a walk-on at Purdue. It's been a few years, but I remember his parents telling me stories of, I don't know if it's like this in every program or not, but, he wasn't able to have dinner with the team because they were all on scholarships and he was a walk-on. So he had to do his own thing. So I don't know how much truth there was into that, but I don't know if that was a thing you found at Akron that, the guys on scholarship got to do that you weren't able to be a part of, or, you had to pay for your own gear, your hoodies and stuff like that, or that was all given to you as well.
Yeah, nah, the one thing, man, that's pretty crappy of a program. But one thing at Akron was I never felt like I was less than being a walk on. Everybody, incorporated me and everything. Like obviously you got a little bit of freshman hazing and stuff, like, hey, carry the seniors' helmets and stuff like that. But that was honestly that all of the freshmen had to do that. So I felt incorporated, but nah, there was never anything like that. I wasn't on the same meal plan since I had to choose my own, paying for it on my own. So I didn't eat at the cafeteria with everybody. But it wasn't like it wasn't like that. But I can't speak to his experience. Some schools probably are like that, and that's crappy.
So obviously, you said you walked on, you were a walk on for, you said 2 years, and then your third year you got that scholarship. What was that like for you? How did they award that to you? Did they do something special? I know we see on ESPN all the time all these guys like, hey, we're going to hand you this envelope, or they're going to open up like a box or whatever. How did they do anything special like that, or was it just, hey, come to the coach's office, he wants to talk to you?
Nah, so my coach at the time, his name was Rob Ianello, and I'll mention him because at the time I did not like him. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he was what was best for a lot of young men's lives. He was really, really tough on us, and people didn't like that. But ultimately, again, like I think a lot of people learn a lot of life lessons from him. But I say all that to say, it was tough earning that scholarship with him because he was the second coach. They didn't recruit me after my freshman year. All my coaching staff got fired, and then Ianello and his staff came in. So things were tough because I had to reprove myself to everybody all over again. And the first coaching staff kind of told my mom, like, hey, after the first year, we're probably going to give him a scholarship. So having to earn that again really sucked. But there was no special way that they had given it to me. It was just, I remember after working hard for a year, he pulled me into his office and he just had a sit down conversation with me, and he told me that I earned it. But I remember it was still kind of dry because this is kind of how he was. But I mean, honestly, it just meant the world to me because I knew that I had earned that. So it was awesome.
So when you earned that scholarship, what was the phone call like to mom? I mean, I'm sure she was jumping for joy and calling everybody else. So kind of, and I'm sure that felt cool for you to accomplish that as well. So kind of what was it, without too many great details, kind of what was that phone call? What did it mean to you?
I mean, it meant everything to me, man, because, that's the first year, like I said, I had paid for it with scholarships. The second year I had to take out my first little loan. And I knew that was something that I didn't want to keep doing. But finally getting that scholarship and calling to my mom, like she cried because she's a crier. But no, it was.
Yes,
It
she
just
is.
right, Alex. But no, it just meant a lot to me that I could put her at ease, knowing that at least if anything else, my schooling was paid for.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it was awesome.
So take me back. You're a freshman walking into camp the very first day. Mindset, what are you thinking? Are you like, this is not Lima, Ohio anymore? This is the big time. This is the real deal. So kind of, are you timid, or are you like, I've got an opportunity to do something that people dream about doing, and I'm going to take full advantage of it, and here we go.
Oh, yeah, no, I was petrified, man, because I remember my mom and she took me to my dorm room, and I remember getting on the elevator, and I ran into one of the dudes that was on, like, Akron's, like, football cards, like the little cards that they had cut out. His name was Armando Sewell. He still plays, I think, for Edmonton up in the football league. This dude coming in as a freshman, he was a defensive tackle, benched 525 pounds, and I saw it. But like I seen it, like I got on the elevator with my mom, and he was coming down, getting off, and I just remember looking at my mom after he got off. I'm like, dude, like I gotta block this dude. Like, what the heck? So I mean, that definitely, and that was day one. So I definitely was a little bit nervous, to say the least, after that. But with everything, it's a growing process. I remember the first day of practice, I got freaking pancaked by somebody else. So it was all a learning process, but you live and you learn and you get better.
Sure. And I think it's one of those things too, you get the first hit out of the way, and then after that it's just football.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like I can remember, because I played high school ball, and I came up across a picture not too long ago from 2-a-days, 10 years ago, and of course 2-a-days aren't a thing anymore in high school sports. And I'm sitting here like, freshman year, it was kind of the same way. You come from junior high to high school, and you get smoked, and you're like, okay, it's back to football. Right. So it's kind of around the same lines, but at the same time, you are a little petrified because these varsity guys are bigger. Right. And so, especially coming from a smaller program like Lima to a D1 Akron, it's got to be a culture shock for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was.
So Akron plays in is it InfoCision Stadium? I know it's nicknamed the Rubber Bowl, but it's InfoCision Stadium. What was that like playing that first snap of your first game in front of, that big stadium? I mean, you remember Lima Stadium. I mean, it's a real tall, real small little high school stadium. When you walked in your first time against your first opponent, what was that moment like for you? Were you like, wow, this is it. I've really arrived.
Yeah. So, dang, y'all got some good questions. Well, the Rubber Bowl.
We've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I know, right? So the Rubber Bowl itself was Akron's old stadium, and they might have nicknamed the new one the Rubber Bowl, but the Rubber Bowl was its own stadium. But I say that to say my first year at Akron in 2009 was the first year InfoCision was opened. So my first game, and I didn't dress because I redshirted my freshman year. But my first game, I was on the field, and we played Morgan State, and it was the first game in a brand new stadium, and the crowd, it was sold out, so it was about 30,000, and it was amazing. I was like, yo, like it's football. This is crazy. And then I think everybody just came out for that first game, and then after that, like, we never saw a crowd like that again. We had some big ones here and there, but it still was coming from, Lima. And our stadium was a decent size for high school, not compared to like them Texas ones, but it was huge. It was awesome.
So I've always been intrigued too with, guys coming into the programs and things like that, the physical transformation. So, your body's it's got to be brutal. I mean, I had a few friends who played at Michigan, and I've talked to them about their diets and their workouts and things like that. And it's unbelievable when they do the, pre-camp picture at the end of the season, how, the body fat and the diet and everything, just incredible. So kind of what physical change did you go through? What did you see yourself improve in and things like that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked this question because I probably went through one of the biggest transformations I have ever seen. Because at the end of the year, I only netted 5 pounds, but it was a crazy transformation. So my first coaching staff, they wanted really big linemen, and I came in at 275. So wanted me in the 300s, which most people, you would think that you work your way with muscle and work your way up. But they were like, no, you have to go. We want you to be eating a hamburger and pizza for lunch and a milkshake, a sub, and a pizza for dinner. And I'm like, okay. So that was my strength coach is telling me that. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, I like to eat, so I could do that. So fast forward to the end of the season, I now weigh 330 pounds. So I gained 50 pounds in a semester. People talk freshman 15, I gained the freshman 50. So that was cool, but I was like fat. Like I was stronger, but like it was like no use. So that coaching staff gets fired. And the first day that I meet my new O-line coach, he shakes my hand and he says, Pugsley, you're TFF. Do you know what that means? I said, no, what does that mean, coach? He said, too effing fat. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, nice to meet you too. So we conditioning that spring, and we would have to get up at 4:30 in the morning, dressed on the line at 5 o'clock, have like an hour and a half of just running and sprints and coaches yelling at you, trying to break you mentally. But then after that, when everybody got to go to breakfast, they made me get on the bike for 45 minutes to lose weight. So because we ran a power scheme, but they wanted skinny linemen. So ultimately, I gained 55 the first semester, and in the second semester, I was back down to 285. So actually, I might have netted 10 pounds, but I lost 45 pounds the second semester.
That's got to be brutal watching everybody go to breakfast, go do whatever. That's got to be absolutely nuts. Just like, come on, I want to join them.
Oh, it was worse, man. That almost broke me mentally because the running and stuff was one thing, and then they're yelling at you and trying to break you, and then like everybody leaves and you're just in there just biking. Like my sanity was definitely wavering.
Sure. And it's so funny you bring up that story too, because my friend who played at Michigan, one of them was an offensive lineman. And so, in the Big Ten, powerhouse like that, they had him eating McDonald's every night before he went to bed just to put the weight on. And then he eventually transferred to Eastern Michigan. But yeah, every night his freshman, sophomore year was just cheeseburgers at 8:30, 9 o'clock every night before he went to bed. He goes, I was tired of it. Absolutely hated it. It was miserable because you have to wake up in the morning and go work out, and then go have a big breakfast and then go on to class. And so I can just only imagine. And I love food too, and I get it. But it's like you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
Right, seriously. For sure.
So you had, 3 different coaching changes. You had your coaches who recruited you. Then you had your second stint. Your last set of coaches you had, Coach Terry Bowden. What was that like, getting to play under him? Like, I mean, the man's a legend. Everybody knows Terry Bowden.
Yeah, so it was honestly, it was like a shock because being in Akron, it was, I guess, small time compared to like the fives. And then you hear Bobby Bowden's son is about to come coach you, and you're like, oh, like, this is crazy. So, I remember him coming in, and like I think we were all just kind of shocked at first. But then at the end, like you said, it's football. So, but it definitely was. I would say I had the most fun with Coach Bowden. Because of like our style of play. Like it was just basically run and gun type. And I was starting, so that makes things better when you're playing. So but yeah, I started my 2 years when I was with him. But ultimately, and I won't say anything, like it wasn't anything bad towards Bowden, but I think with Ianello, he prepared us more for life. Bowden, we had a lot of fun with football though. I will say that.
Now, during your time, did you ever meet like Jason Taylor, for example? Was he involved in the program at all? Did he come to practice, hang out with you guys, talk with you at all, anything like that?
Not it, and it was crazy because whenever you would see him on TV, it would be like notable things. Like he went to Akron, or if you hear anything about Akron, you hear obviously LeBron first and foremost. But if you talk about football, Jason Taylor's like the biggest name, and so you would think that he was super involved. But like he sent us like a video once before a game, and like that was cool. But I just I thought that I would see him, but nah, never.
So your senior year, you guys traveled up to Ann Arbor,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sitting in my dorm at Toledo watching that game. I mean, back to high school, how big of a Michigan fan I was. But I was sitting there, and I'm watching you guys play, and I'm telling my buddies, 76, I know him. That and I'm losing my mind. And a small part of me wanted you guys to win that game solely for you. 4th and goal. What that was, I mean, I know it's probably breaking your heart reliving that memory. But I mean, what was that like? Just now you're playing in front of 110,000 people. They're all wearing blue and gold. They're all screaming at you, to be right there on the doorstep to beating Michigan. Obviously, there's no moral victories in football, but I mean, the fact that you guys were right there had to be such a huge thing for the program.
Dude, I'm like getting chills thinking back on that. But no, so you know, in all my years of football, even though like I almost, and it sucks to say, like I almost learned to lose. I learned to be a good loser and like not mope on it. I never expected to lose a game, and like I would go into games and just be like, all right, like we can do this. Um, Obviously some more than others. Michigan was one where I'm like, dude, like I'm expecting to win, but like we going to pull a rabbit out the hat. But like we start playing, and like AJ said, it was like this is football. Like after that first couple pops, it was like, all right, like yeah, I could block these guys, and we're doing our thing, and we're up, going into fourth quarter, and first of all, that was the biggest crowd I've ever played in front of, like, and to have 112,000 people there, and the only people that are saying anything is your 800 fans way up in the corner. Like, it was dead silent, and it was just the most amazing feeling. Now, that that last drive, I talk about the last drive because it's just surreal. Sorry, like I'm still like when I go back to it, it's just a crazy feeling. But I remember being next to my guard, his name Dylan Brumbaugh, I love him to death, and we couldn't talk, like we couldn't communicate, and we're like 2 feet apart. We could not communicate our plays because it was so loud. Like I remember watching the film and the camera was shaking because it was just so loud in there. And the fact that we were just driving it, like we just were doing our thing, and it was an amazing feeling. We get down to that fourth down, last play of the game. They run a blitz that we never seen before. And yeah, I mean, the ball, they throw it up. my quarterback Kyle Pohl throws it up to Zach DeRazio, and it's just a little bit too far. But man, that was awesome. Now, and you would think after that, we like, okay, I think we got cocky. And this was one of those things like not knowing how to win or not knowing how to like be in a good game with a really good team, because like we thought like, okay, like we can win the MAC after that, which we definitely could have, but then we just kind of sputtered out. But yeah.
Now, were you on that team also that played at Happy Valley? Was that the following year?
So
Or was that...
I wasn't on the team, but
Okay.
I was back
Okay.
as a GA, and I'll talking about the NFL. I'll explain how I was back there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the MAC show, because we're all MAC guys. We love it. Did you enjoy playing the random Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night games in the fall? Like, as a fan, it's awesome. But as a player, I'm sure that's got to be a grind.
Yeah, so I think I may have been the second year that they started that up. But I think my first year we didn't. No, sorry. So my first year I was a junior. The first year that they started Maction, I was a junior, and we played like a random like Tuesday night against Toledo, I think. Anyway, then yeah, that was I don't think that was Maction though, because I think that was right. I think that was like right before Thanksgiving, so I think that just was like a regular.
Yeah, that was right before Thanksgiving, but I was at that game.
Yeah, and you guys beat us in that game. I'm trying to think if my senior year we had a Maction game. I don't think we did. Yeah, I don't think we did. So I guess I can't really talk on it. I just know that playing third games in the NFL, it like your schedule, your whole schedule changes, and like what was your Monday, that's your day off, is now like your first day of like hard practice, and it sucks as a player trying to switch up your schedule like that, especially if you come in off a hard week, a hard game, and then you got to roll right into hitting each other again the next day. It's tough.
Sure. So what are some of the MAC stadiums you looked forward to going to, outside of Akron? You saw it on the schedule, you're like, okay, cool, we're going to BG, we're going down to Muncie, we're going to DeKalb. Is there any kind of those that kind of stuck out for you when you got to see the schedule at the beginning of the year?
Dude, y'all questions are great. Sorry, and I keep saying it, but like, you make me think.
Because we love MAC sports. I mean, because in our minds, it doesn't get the love that it deserves.
You're right.
And we love it.
You're right, for sure. Definitely underrated. I would say OU, even though I feel like and I don't know why. I think just because they were really good, I hated OU. I did like going down and play there. Now their stadium's not anything crazy to rave about, but like their base was pretty awesome. I liked them. Their locker room sucked though for away teams. It was really, really crowded. So OU, and then I liked Toledo. I only played at Toledo one time, and there was like that whole castle thing. So that was cool. I didn't understand it, but like that was like, I remember walking into the stadium, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And
I'll fill you in sometime.
All right, because I was definitely lost. But and then I guess the other one that I would say was NIU. I liked. They were always a threat to beat you in the MAC. So their base was pretty crazy, but like I liked their stadium as well. And it was like it was like in the middle of a neighborhood. Like,
yeah.
It was crazy.
And because in 2013, Ball State was atop, and so was Northern Illinois. And Brady Hoke, being a Ball State guy, he paid for 200 students to go to that game. So we all took a bus trip out there on a Wednesday night or whatever it was. and this was the year after they went to the BCS. So they had all this BCS money, and the facilities they built were just incredible.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell the away fans that when they score, because they had Jordan Lynch at the time, so they were just scoring left and right. But they had that cannon they'd let off every touchdown, and they didn't tell anybody. And so it was right to our right, and that thing goes off for the first time. And like, what the hell was that? It was brutal. But yeah, because they had Jordan Lynch, and we had Keith Winning, Willie Snead, Juwan Edwards, all those guys. And
that's right.
Yeah,
I forgot y'all.
Yeah, and so it was a long bus drive because you lose an hour, or you gain an hour going, lose an hour coming back. But their facilities were just incredible. And we gave their fans kind of a hard time because their police cars on campus are Toyota Priuses. And so we would just give them a hard time. And we had the Northern Illinois track coach on a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago, rather. I brought that up to him. He kind of nodded his head and just goes, yeah, that's still a thing here. But you're right. Their facilities are incredible. And I mean, there's a reason why they do contend every year. And it does come down to facilities, because Ball State finally is building a new football facility. That's kind of why Pete Lembeau left, is because they weren't helping him out anywhere. And so, but they're finally putting the money into it at the time, and I think that's going to help long term, because the guys were doing their pro days in the rec center where we had a 50-yard turf football field, and so they would block it off, and scouts would come in while I'm eating Quiznos sub and watching through the window. Like, that doesn't work.
Come on, man.
That does not work.
Yeah, and you got 50 yards and you're trying to run 40s on them. Like, you only got 10 yards of wiggle room.
Exactly, which we're going to get into your pro day stuff here soon, too. So, make sure you've got those numbers still fresh in your mind.
Oh, I got them. No worry. I will say the other one early on, when I first got there, I guess when we were all in school, Temple was in the MAC, and they didn't have a home stadium, so we played at the Eagles Stadium. So that was pretty dope.
That would be cool. That would be cool. So let's get into your pro day. How did you have an idea at the end of that day that this could be a possibility of playing on Sundays?
Yes. Well, I guess backtrack a little. I would be remiss if I didn't mention my late coach, Alan Arrington. So when Terry Bowden came in, one of the best things he did was bring in my offensive line coach from my junior and senior year, named Alan Arrington. He was this short, chubby dude from Mississippi, and he talked like it. He was just the goofiest dude ever, but he was an amazing coach, but he was more just an amazing person. But I remember him pulling me in after spring ball after our first year of spring ball, and we were decimated on the O-line. Like, a couple kids quit, a couple were injured, and one of them was an engineer, so he had to go to class during practice. I promise I'll get back to the pro day question.
No, we're good.
He had to go to class during practice, so we only had 6 linemen during spring ball, and so we had to run with the 1-3s. Like, we just had to go. Like, we just kept playing. So it was crazy. But I remember Coach Tank pulled me in April after spring ball, and he was like, mark my words. He was like, today's April 16, 2000. I forget the year. I think it was 2012. He was like, I've had people go to the league, and you're better than all of them. He was like, you keep working, you can make it to the league, which was insane to me because I had never had a winning season ever until I got to my first year at the Chiefs. Ever. Middle school, always had losing record. High school, always had losing record. And Akron, even though my last year was fun, we were 5-7. So it was still a losing record. So having that mindset of like always losing, like, I didn't think that the NFL was even a possibility until he even put that seed into my mind, to be honest. So going into my senior year, like, again, I started to believe that, but I was like, okay, like, I just need to keep doing what I'm doing. So I had a really good senior season. I'm humble, but it is what it is. And so leaving that season, I'm like, okay, like, I put it all out there, and let's see what happens. Well, I signed with the agent, Justin Turner out of South Carolina, and he was telling me, yeah, like you could do this. So like going into pro day, I knew that it was a possibility, but then I did really well on my pro day, and so that I knew I was like, okay, like, yeah, I think I
Sure.
can do that.
So, according to Wikipedia, you did 34 reps on the bench. If I put 225 in front of you right now, how many are you repping out?
225 right now, probably 25. I haven't been under a bench in a while, but I think I still got that.
I mean, why not? I mean, still, it's a solid number. 24 is most. I mean, if you look at numbers now, 24 is a pretty consistent number across the board, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you feel like an added pressure, running a 40-yard dash when these guys, you have however many scouts are sitting at the 40 yards with a clicker? Do you concentrate on that at all, or do you just see the 40 yards and you go for it as fast as you can?
I'm a pretty chill guy. I wish I could say that I didn't care, but like it was a lot of pressure because I remember. So I'm really good friends with my then strength coach. He's the strength coach at University of Buffalo now, but he was talking to a scout with the Arizona Cardinals, and after I did my bench, we not using this film. My wife trying to sneak out the room. After doing my bench and my vertical jump, my friend talked to the Cardinal scout because they really wanted me, and he said, well, if he does well on his 40, then we might have to draft him. And my friend told me that before I ran, and I'm like, dude. So I run my 40. I don't remember that number. I think it was like a 5'1" something.
5.29.
5'2". No way. That's what they got me at. That's too slow.
That's what Wikipedia's got you at, with a 1.71 10-yard split and a 3.05 20-yard split.
No, Wikipedia's why. Maybe not. I don't remember. But yeah, no. So there was a lot of pressure on that part. I will say that.
Yeah, I just and just looking at it, obviously you finish your combine, or not your combine, your pro day, whatever. You go undrafted. Are you expecting to get drafted at all at that point? Now that you've contacted your agent, you've got people kind of talking, hey, you could go, you could get drafted, you could go here, whatever. Are you expecting to get drafted, or were you just waiting on like a free agency, signing, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, so I was like, agents and stuff, they'll tell you what you're projected. And the thing that I learned afterwards is that whatever people project you as, you should go like 2 to 3 rounds less than that. Like obviously there's a chance you could go there, you could go higher, but like realistically you're probably going a little bit lower. So like I was projected at like 5th round, and I'm like, all right, like that's freaking awesome. Like what? And 5th round comes around. I was leading up to it, I was talking to the Cardinals, talking to the Chiefs, and the Cowboys came in. So the Chiefs had a pick in the 5th round, and they didn't go with me. Obviously, I went undrafted, so there's no suspense here. Chiefs had a pick in the 5th round. I'm like, okay, like, well, maybe the Cardinals, and then they passed up. So it gets to the 7th round, and there's teams that still have picks. And I've heard, and I guess this is true, like past like the 4th round, there's no guarantees on like your spot with the team. So you almost want to go free agent just so that you can choose which team is best for you. I think it's still cool to be drafted. I do understand the logic behind it. But I remember the Cowboys had 3 picks in the 7th round that year. And they called me in the middle after they used 1. So they still had 2 picks left. And they called me up, and I talked to my agent, and he's like, yeah, I think the Cowboys will be best for you, this and that. I'm like, all right, awesome. And the Cowboys called me up in the middle of the 7th round, and I'm like, oh, yes, this is my opportunity, baby. So they called me. They're like, all right, Jarrod, you ready to be a Cowboy? I'm like, yes, sir, let's go. And then they're like, all right, we're going to sign you free agent right after the draft. And I'm like, man, Like, come on, dude. So they kind of got my hopes up to be drafted, but I was like one of the first people that they picked up as a free agent. So I guess.
Who calls you? Is that Jason Garrett? Is it the offensive line coach? Who makes that call?
It was somebody in the front office. I honestly can't even tell you his name. I don't remember anymore. But yeah, it was some guy, and he offered me a job in the NFL. I didn't care.
Sure. And he's probably said, "Get on a plane. You'll see you in a couple days."
Yeah. So also that was the crazy part. So it was Mother's that weekend, and I graduated on Sunday. So the third through seventh round happens on that Saturday. And I was graduating from Akron on Sunday. So I had to get up after I chose my team. I had to get up at 5 a.m, drive up to Akron. And I walked in my graduation, and then right after graduation, Cowboys called me and they're like, "Okay, can you get on the flight tonight?" And I was like, "I still have to pack up my whole apartment." And they're like, "Okay, well, tomorrow morning it is." And I'm like, Jesus. So yeah, it was quick. Real quick.
It had to be cool kind of walking across stage, getting your diploma, knowing you're an NFL player. You know, you got a diploma, the person behind you has an engineering degree, you know, somebody else has something behind you, in front of you, and here you are going to the NFL. That had to be kind of cool.
It was awesome, and like, I mean, I was on cloud nine all weekend, and like, it was Mother's Day that day, and that was awesome. Like, just to graduate in front of my mom, like, after all the things, like with me being a walk-on, gaining a scholarship, she had some health problems in the middle, and I thought that I might have to come back home for a while. Like, after all we've been through, like, for me to walk in graduation was like, forget the NFL stuff, like, that was more powerful.
That was absolutely. And it seemed like everything happened so fast.
Oh, it was quick. But on top of that, when I was walking, there was a guy who in the crowd was like, "Go Cowboys!" when they said my name. So that was pretty cool.
So just in that short amount of time, it had made news to Akron that you were going.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my next question.
They didn't like announce it like Jarrod Pughsley is the Dallas Cowboy, but like, I guess if you research, it came up. So yeah, somebody in the crowd, "Go Cowboys!"
Because I didn't know if, when the president's handing your degree, I don't know if he knew that you were heading to Dallas to play. I didn't know how fast that news traveled.
Yeah, there was a lady named Ann Jorgensen. She's the I was about to say financial advisor, academic advisor for all the athletes. So she saw me right before I got on, and she asked me where I was going. I told her, and she like teared up. So
that's awesome. Okay, so now we're in the NFL. We're in Dallas. We talked a little bit about your first days in camp in Akron, and I'm sure this is a total whirlwind. You're going back to stage one essentially. And Dallas being a premier program, a well-known organization in the league and in all of sports. Putting a star on your helmet's got to be kind of a life-altering event, I'd assume.
Yeah, man, it was surreal, to be honest. I didn't, coming from Akron, like, I was just trying to get on a scholarship, and then I was just trying to get on the field, and then I was trying to get on, be a starter. So like, people ask me all the time, like, was the NFL a dream of yours? And like, honestly, not really, because I think it might have been far to reach for that. It wasn't something as a kid where I was like, I'm going to be an NFL star. Like, I just slowly worked my way up to it. So like, in that moment, it's just so surreal, because it's like, man, like, this is bigger than what I dreamed of, Sure. So, I mean, that was amazing, but I mean, it was short-lived, because my first day of rookie minicamp, we're like, I'm doing pretty well, I think. Actually, no, I think I was doing pretty well. It felt good to be out there. Like, it's tough going against people you don't know, because you don't know their moves and stuff. But like, I felt like I was doing pretty good. And it was the second to last play of practice, first practice. I was a right tackle. I was setting back, and I kind of I went out too much instead of back. So then I invited the defensive end to come inside, and he went inside, and I tried to stop him with my left arm, and then my arm just got hyperextended backwards, and then popped my bicep. So I popped my bicep tendon, and I remember looking down, and there was like a hole, like where my bicep should be. I guess I could say gap. Like my skin wasn't open, but like where my bicep was, it wasn't anymore. So I looked down, I'm like, oh man, this isn't normal. And then I look, and I was playing next to Zach Martin, and I was like, dude, I think I messed up my bicep. And he's like, dude, you just gotta play through it. Like, come on. I'm like, nah. Like I played one play, but I didn't even put my hand up. And then the coaches pulled me out, and I was like, yeah, I think I messed up my bicep. It was, I think the shock of the moment, it didn't hurt that bad, but I was like just scared, like, oh my God. So yeah, that's tough.
So how long, it's according to Wikipedia, so we're getting a lot of this information through them. So it looks like they kind of cut you pretty quickly after that. Kansas City comes along. Same kind of deal. Hey, can you get on a flight tonight? Can you, was that the same process going from Dallas to Kansas City? Did you come back to Lima in between, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, so I quickly got a surgery to repair my bicep tendon, and they asked where I wanted to do rehab, and I wanted to do it back at Akron. So I did come back to Lima for about a month because I couldn't start rehab. I just had to rest, and it was like middle of July. So I went back to Lima for a month, and I mean, when I tell you, those were some dark days, man. Because I finally get my shot in the NFL, and it's cut on day one. I'm like, dude, what the heck? So I mean, you hear all these stories about how it's so hard to make it in the league. So I just thought it was over. I'm like, oh, there's no chance anymore. So I mean, yeah, I remember I would just wake up, I would eat, and then I would play Battlefield 4 like all day in my room because I was in a sling. Yeah, so then Akron, thankfully, Terry Bowden took me on in his staff, and I was a GA technically, kind of, but I just helped the O-line out while I rehabbed. And then my buddy, who's the strength coach at Buffalo, who was at Akron, he just started training me in the meantime. So like once I got the clear or go ahead, I would help out in the weight room and with the O-line, and then like at the end of the day I would train and get ready for the NFL again. So I remember a week before I was cleared to play, Kansas City called my agent, and they were, Kansas City wants you to fly out and practice. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And I do remember the guy's name from Kansas City who called me, because I still have his voicemail. His name was Randy Ball. He called me and was like, hey, we really want you up here. Like, come up. And I remember going up and killing my workout, and I was on the practice squad.
So when you're doing that workout, I'm assuming that they're bringing in other free agents, and it's kind of working out it's kind of like a pro day again, essentially, I'd assume.
Mm-hmm.
You're redoing everything, like you did to get into the league. So at this point, having done it already, did you feel very comfortable in that workout, and because you knew what it took, because you'd already done it essentially?
No, because it was one other guy, and he was a DB, and like, as opposed to like all eyes are on you at pro day, but there's other people, and like there's stuff to kind of be distractions. Like here is literally like, we're all here to watch you, so don't mess up. So I mean, and I remember my strength coach, my buddy, I could say his name, Matt Gildersleeve. He was like, all right, man, when you get there, like this is your one shot, like you got to go hard. So once you run through the line, make sure you turn around and you just be ready. So like I was literally like doing drills like as fast as I could, and like finish through the line hard, and then I'll turn around and I'll just be ready. And
Sure.
And like it was to the point where Randy Ball was like, hey, we just want to see how you can move, man. Like, I understand that you're going hard, like, but you're all right. You can take a breath, get some water. And I was like, okay. So yeah, I was like, I guess over the top. But yeah, it was nerve-wracking, but I definitely was ready for that workout.
It probably brought you back to those days at Akron when you're trying to earn a scholarship. I mean, essentially,
Yeah,
it's the same thing, essentially. And so,
for sure.
like I said, you've done it already. You know what it takes to get to achieve that goal, and you achieved it getting that scholarship, and you earned a roster spot. So, I mean, the work ethic, it was there, and I'm sure obviously the coaches noticed, which is incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And like I was saying earlier, alluded to it when I got to the NFL, being a free agent was very similar to being a walk-on. You know, you got to improve yourself, and it was something that I was used to doing. So, and again, it's one of those things where you see guys that are drafted, and I think a lot of times it's just subconsciously, but it kind of goes to your head to where it's like, okay, I'm drafted, like I'm good with this team, they like me, so like you don't take that extra rep that you used to do, or you won't stay after for that 10, 15 minutes that you used to, and you start to slip up. You know? So having to be hungry in your spot, force me.
So speaking of being hungry, are they trying to put weight on you in Kansas City, sending you to all these Kansas City barbecue places? What are they doing to you out there physically?
So the thing in the league, and I had to learn this, because in college, like you got guys that look out for your health and stuff, because you're all on one team, and that's somebody's job. In the league, like this is your job and your opportunity. So like if you want to eat well, then you will. If you want to eat crappy and feel terrible the next day, then that's on you. But like, do you want this or not? And like, I mean, obviously there's nutritionists and like the top of the line, everything if you want it. But yeah, like when I first got here, people showed me all these barbecue spots. I'm like, oh man, like this is awesome. And then like I had to slow myself down, because I'm like, all right, like let me salad, because I got here in October and it started to get cool, so practices weren't that hard anymore because pads were off, and it started getting colder, and like we weren't sweating as much. So I started packing on a couple of pounds, not as much as my freshman year, but I was like, yeah, let me slow down.
Sure, because I mean, heck, a few months prior to that, you're eating at a cafeteria at a college, like all you can eat buffet.
Seriously.
So, like,
seriously, man.
I get it. So was Alex Smith the quarterback when you were out there then?
Yeah.
So obviously he's making his, attempting to make his return. Did you get a chance to watch the ESPN 30 for 30 on him?
No, they have a 30 for 30 on him?
Yeah, with his whole rehab with this injury and things like that. And just from, of course, I never really followed him until I saw this, but he seems like one incredible dude.
Yeah, dude, he's awesome. Like he was like one of the first people, because again, in college, like you're all in the same age range, right? Like 18 to 23 if you had like a couple setbacks, but like you're all within like that partying range.
Yeah.
But like in the league, and one of the best things about Kansas City was we had a bunch of young offensive linemen, and like only one of us were married. So like it was like an extension of college. We all like hung out and stuff, and like I had a girlfriend at the time, my now wife, but like she lived back home, so like we would just all hang out and like play Halo and stuff together. There was that, but like Alex was one of the first people that I met in the league where it's like, oh, like he's a true family man. Like this is business for him, because he would come, he would talk to you, like he was super kind. But then like he would be studying, or like when people be leaving to go home, like he would be studying. You would walk past a room and he would still be watching film. And then like he would bring his kids up like to the facilities at times, and like you're like, oh, like he's a true family man, like this is his job, so he changed my perspective on it a little bit. But yeah, humble dude.
Sure.
Just awesome.
Yeah, if you get a chance
really
to
nice.
watch that, it's on ESPN. I think it's on demand now, but it kind of his whole rehab during all of this since this injury and whatnot, and trying to make a comeback this year. It's really incredible what he's been through.
Yeah, no,
So then 2013 would have been Andy Reid's first year then, right?
13 was I got there 14.
You got 14. Okay, so yeah, we would have been there then. He seems like a character.
Yeah, he is. Honestly, I think one of the things he does best is he delegates. He trusts. He has a really great staff, obviously, and he delegates like his staff to coach their players. So, like my offensive line coach, Coach Andy Heck, dealt with us for the most part, by and large. Now, like obviously, Coach Reed would talk to you, and especially if he was messing your side and tell you about it. But he didn't have a whole bunch of interactions with, I guess, I don't want to say smaller players, but he didn't have a whole bunch of interactions with me personally. But every once in a while we'd talk, or like I'll throw a joke at him here and there. But he's a great coach.
Yeah.
I mean, they just won the Super Bowl and they deserve it, man.
Sure. Now, does he wear any other shirts besides Hawaiian shirts? Because that's all you always see him in.
Nah, he's a pretty chill dude. I think he has a small wardrobe. I'm sure he has a bunch, but he does not wear much outside of that comfort zone.
So now, obviously, you got the opportunity with Kansas City. You got your first NFL start. What was that like? Obviously, you've been practicing with these guys. You've been interacting with Alex Smith, with all these young offensive linemen. You get told, "Hey, you're starting this week." What was that like? Obviously you probably called mom. I'm sure I would have absolutely called mom. Did you fly her out for the game? Like, what was that experience for that first start like?
So I started in preseason. So those were my starts, which were awesome. Like regular season, preseason, like you're starting in the NFL, like that's pretty awesome. Again, like it's just one of those surreal feelings. Like every time you hit a milestone, like the starting is like one of those milestones where it's like, yo, like this is the next step. So it was amazing. It was when we played. My first one was when we played against the St. Louis Rams at the time. Right, it was the year before they moved to LA. It was an amazing feeling. But I think you're talking about I was on practice squad from majority of the time of 2015, but then I got on active roster in December, and we played the Patriots in the playoff year, and I did fly my still girlfriend at the time. Yeah, my girlfriend at the time, and my mom out to the game. So I did play in that game.
Yes,
and
you did.
That was amazing.
Yes, you
did. That was amazing to play against the freaking Pats in the playoffs. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, I remember watching that game, and obviously knowing you for as long as I have, every stop you had, I was following. It's like, look, I went to high school with this guy. I was always telling people like, hey, look, my buddy Jarrod's in Dallas now. Oh, now he's in Kansas City. And then I sat down. I saw Kansas City was playing the Patriots. I think it was a divisional round game, and I saw that you were on the card to start, and I was just in my apartment. I was losing it. I was telling people, hey, Lima folks, pay attention. He's starting this week. Like, so as a fan, of somebody who's known you forever, it was awesome. And I'm sure you had the entire of Lima. You could probably just almost feel that energy as you were playing in that game. And I think that's such a cool thing to kind of get you that opportunity and to kind of see you go from from West Middle School, back in good old West Middle School, all the way up to now you're starting in the NFL. That's just, that's such a cool thing to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I felt the love from Lima, not having many people who made it to the NFL. It was just all love, man. Like, and I just can't tell you how much support that I got, and like that's really like there was definitely some dark days in the NFL because like you feel like there's a lot of pressure on you, but just knowing that your city behind you is definitely helped me.
Was there a moment, whether on the field or off the field, where you kind of subconsciously go, this is it. This is the league. This is what we've worked hard for. And what was that moment? And was it possibly, lining up against a D end or a DT that you've idolized for years, and saying, okay, this is the real deal?
So the moment where I was like, this is it, because, I was for a long time, was when I finally made it on the active roster. I mean, like, it was surreal. And I remember because we had just played the Buffalo Bills at home, and this was my second year. I was on practice squad, and we had 3 linemen go down. And then that was on Sunday. Monday we come in for a light workout, and we watch film and stuff, and or to my apartment. I'm about to take a nap, and my agent calls me, and he's like, all right, Jarrod, like, this is the moment. So the New York Giants called you, and they called me, and they want to sign you to their active roster, because on practice squad you can be signed to anybody's active roster. Sorry, I'm sure you know that. So you could be signed at any moment to anybody's active roster if they want you. So he was like, so our options are, we either use this as leverage for Kansas City to sign you, or we pack up and we fly to New York tonight. And I'm like, okay. But I really loved Kansas City. I still do. I mean, I still live here. I love the city. Like, the people are awesome. The energy is amazing. So I was like, well, let's talk to, John Dorsey, who was the GM. I was like, let's talk to him and try to stay here. So no more than 5 minutes later, John Dorsey calls me. He was like, hey, like, we were going to sign you this week anyway. Like, trust me, like, we don't want you to leave, this and that. And so then they call me 30 minutes later. They're like, okay, we got your contract written up. Come in, sign it. So in December, I was on. It took a while, but I finally was on active roster, and to be a part of the 52, like, that was surreal, because it's just like, this is what I worked for real.
Yeah,
right.
That was an amazing feeling.
So mentally, when you're putting the pen to the paper there, you see the pictures of, guys signing their first contracts and things like that. First off, do you have a picture? Did anybody take the cool picture of, the helmet, nothing like that?
No, nobody did. I wish they did.
Right. That'd be incredible. I mean, that's something to put in your classroom right there. I mean, that'd be awesome. But, mentally kind of, was that the, where I'm in the National Football League? Was that kind of the defining moment for you? Not that you've been in the league, but putting the pen to paper probably had to be like the seal of it.
Nah, yeah, it definitely was. It was, and it was just all those years of being a walk-on and working your way up, and then being on practice squad and working your way up. It was like all those years led up to that moment, and it was just an amazing feeling.
Sure. So as our podcast, as we mentioned, we're very centered around the MAC, and from one a MAC athlete like yourself, do you guys have a close bond in the league, knowing that you come from a smaller conference? A lot of you guys have the same journey. So if KC has another kid from BG, do you kind of gravitate towards him, or you guys talk a little more often than you would with other players because you have similar stories? You probably played against each other, so kind of like the relationship between you and other MAC players throughout the league.
Yeah, definitely. So at first you don't know where everybody goes, but once you find out that they were in the MAC, it's just like, and you don't realize it. It's because it's like you're all rivals, but like afterwards, it's like having a sibling. Is like, oh, I could pick on my sibling, but y'all better not. Like, it was just like almost like a brotherhood, because Eric Fisher, when I went to Kansas City, went to Central Michigan, and once he found out I went to Akron, it was like, when I was like, oh, did you? Like, all right, that's cool. Like, I remember playing them, and then like we were never like best of friends, but like it was just like, all right, like, he's cool. And then after me, a couple guys made it to the league from Akron, and it was just like an amazing feeling, because one played with me at Kansas City named Justin March, and then a couple other guys made it, and like when we would see each other on the field, Like I remember when I played with the Ravens, playing against my buddy Isaiah Williams, who played for the Redskins at the time, and we took a picture afterwards, and it just was it just was an amazing feeling, like knowing that like there's that brotherhood there.
Sure. And tell me one of those things too, where you look at the grand scheme of things, you may not notice it right away, but the MAC does put out a lot of guys in the NFL every year, late rounded or undrafted. And you see guys like Willie Snead, for example, having been a Ball State guy with me, he was undrafted. Now he's, got a nice contract in Baltimore, and he's one of the top guys. So the MAC does put out those guys every year, and it's always a good amount. But once you probably get into it, you recognize it a little bit more. Because you see their name on a roster, you go, oh, I recognize him from Central, or oh, I remember playing against him back in the day, things like that.
Definitely, and I mean, I honestly, like the league is definitely comprised up of a lot of just smaller conference players, and I think the MAC guys obviously stay together, but when you find out somebody wasn't in the Power Five, almost like a little mark of respect, because it's like, okay, like I know that you had to work really hard to get here. Not saying that if you were in the Power Five you didn't have to work hard, but there's just like a stigma that, oh, you're coming from a smaller school, and then that's not true. And I mean,
sure,
like you could see, I mean, top players like Khalil Mack, like on the Buffalo, like just destroying stuff every week. So there's definitely talent in the MAC, and like you said earlier, we're definitely underrated.
Sure. And you talk about Eric Fisher and then bring up Khalil Mack. With guys going number 1 overall and being top 10 picks like Khalil was, what does that do for a player who's in the MAC? Does that give them a little more confidence saying, okay, this can be done? And kind of for the conference as a whole, I mean, obviously it puts them on the map, but as a player, you've got to be like, okay, he did it. It's possible. It's not impossible to be from here to where he's standing at in the next couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, seeing somebody actually do it before you just allows you to be like, okay, like I can do this. Because if you don't have anybody before you, it's like almost an unattainable goal. Like you can't reach and grab it because you haven't seen it happen. So just having those guys and their success. And I mean, honestly, I would want to say the last 8 years, the MAC has been every year in and year out have been knocking off a Power 5 school, like at least one MAC school, either give somebody a real big scare like we did in 2013, or like they're knocking them off. So, the MAC at any given moment, can beat a big school. So,
well, yeah, exactly. I think, and you're talking about the MAC like being so underrated, but it's you talk about seeing these other guys. It's that elite fraternity almost of like the group of 5 guys. Like you see them and you're like, you mentioned the respect. It's like, yeah, no, I know the grind you put in because I put in the same grind, and it just creates that bond. It makes it a little bit stronger, recognizing as you grow forward is with an NFL team, and with these other players. I think that's such a cool thing. Now, I do have to ask you, because we asked this to all of our guests. For the last 3 months, we've had coaches from Northern Illinois, Toledo. Last month was Ball State. You're our first pure athlete from a program. So, one, glad to have you. But we got to ask you, what did playing in the Mid-American Conference mean to you? And how do you let that kind of shape – how did you let that shape your career as a football player, both in the NFL and a college athlete?
Well, next question. So I look at the MAC, and honestly, everything that I was mentioning about myself as far as having the grind, whether it be me being a walk-on or me being a free agent in the NFL, I feel like that's a true testament to what the MAC represents. Like, we are the underdogs in almost every fight that we're in, but that doesn't stop us, So being in this conference, knowing that I was D1, but like a lot of people would say like, oh, you're D1, but you're the MAC. Like, no, like we're the MAC. Like, you better watch out for us. So, I mean, I'm passionate about Akron, and I'm passionate about just being a part of the Mid-American Conference because, they gave me a chance when really nobody else did. And, I'm grateful for it. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but the MAC is definitely very slept on. And I think just being in that conference and being at Akron just, really just got me ready to take that next step into the league. So, for all my experiences with Akron and being a part of the Mid-American Conference.
I did want to ask about the Baltimore Ravens real quick. Were you there with Chris Wormley?
Yeah, yep. So I was there.
Okay.
His rookie.
So Chris is a good friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Yes, we did our internships together with Toledo Mudhens.
Oh, okay.
And so we had him on the show early on this year. And but I saw you guys overlap there in 2017 there. But I didn't know if you were on the field with him or not. But he's a good, cool dude.
Yeah, he goofy. I like him.
Yeah, very.
But nah, he's good. I mean, he's a good player. I think he had to develop a little when he got to the league, like we all did.
Yeah.
But nah, I mean, I seen him out on the field doing his thing last year, and I think he's grown into being a really good player there.
I think so too. He was just traded to Pittsburgh here in March, and so he was actually traded right when the Baltimore picked up, was it Calais Campbell?
Campbell,
I believe it was. Yeah. And because I saw it was, we kind of saw the writing on the wall. They put Campbell's, picture on his Instagram of him in a Ravens jersey, and it was in Chris's number 93.
Okay.
So okay, Chris is out the door now.
Yeah.
And it's so weird too, because seeing an interdivision rival, make a trade like that.
Yeah.
But he's with Pittsburgh now. I think he actually announced it in our show he's wearing number 95. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because he got traded right before quarantine. And so he couldn't move to Pittsburgh. He couldn't go meet anybody or anything like that. He had just kind of like you had a daughter and was stuck in Baltimore playing for the Steelers, but having to do all Zoom meetings and everything being emailed to him and things like that. So that was definitely fun to talk about. But I didn't know if you were on the same roster with him or not. But that's cool to know.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
If you talk to him, ask him if he remembers Pugs. Everybody.
Yeah, I'll shoot. I'll shoot him a text right now.
Will do.
I'll shoot him a text. But yeah, he was one of our first guests actually.
Yeah, he was our second guest.
Second guest, yeah. He was a lot of fun to talk to. But I mean, during quarantine, we had nothing else to do. So.
Right.
But it was so funny too because you guys had similar stories coming from Ohio, and I think that high school in Ohio, or no matter what your record is in high school football in Ohio, it's good football all across the board. It's quality athletes from the top levels to the bottom. And it's just so cool to see those guys and talk to guys like that because everybody essentially has the same experience. And, when you make it to the league, you've all grinded it out the same way from Akron or Michigan or wherever you go. It's a lot of the same journey.
Yep, for sure.
Jarrod, I guess thank you so much for joining us, man. From one lineman guy to another, I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on, talking your experience with us. It's great to catch up with you. I'm glad to see the family's doing well. I'll be sending you a jersey soon. Have you autograph that for me. But no, honestly, Jarrod, did you have anything else you wanted to say to any of our listeners? Anything about Akron? Anything else you wanted to throw out there for us?
Don't sleep back, man, because we at any given moment we could beat you. So for sure, and I really appreciate you guys having me on. Being a teacher now, people don't have me on as many interviews, but it just feels good.
Well, speaking of being a teacher, do your students know who you are and what you've accomplished?
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm teaching where my wife works. So my wife and I work at the same school, and she has been there since she moved up. Once we got engaged, she moved 16. So I was with the Chiefs, and then I was with the Ravens, obviously, afterwards. But, like, I would come into school, so a lot of the students and staff saw me while I was an NFL player. So, like, then I turn around and I'm, like, I'm just your teacher. Like, I'm just Mr. Pughsley. And so, like, it's funny because, like, at first, everybody in the building knew who I was because I would come in as the NFL player. But, like, now people are kind of phasing out and younger kids are coming in. And, like, it'll just be funny because one day randomly, a kid will be like, "Hey, Mr. Pughsley, I Googled you. Did you used to play for the Chiefs?" And I'm like, yeah, that was me. And they're like, "You used to have dreads?" Yeah, so it's really cool to have the kids' reaction like that.
Do you have any NFL memorabilia in your classroom? Jerseys or things like that?
Not NFL. I have my old of me at Akron. And I've been meaning to print off a picture with the Chiefs, but around to yeah, I will. But yeah,
here you go.
it's cool for the kids because everybody's a Chiefs fan out here, and to know that your math teacher used to play for them,
Sure.
it's just an awesome feeling for them.
Now, do you have to explain to kids where Akron is?
Yeah, Akron.
Do you?
Like you went to Akron.
You probably just say that's where LeBron's from and then figure it out.
Right, yeah, for sure. But yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, and it's just cool because being a 7th grade teacher, kids are starting to find themselves, but you still the innocence in kids, and like my students have never left the state unless they go over to Kansas because it's a 10-minute drive. So even when I just say I'm from Ohio, like they know where it is at, but like they don't know anybody from Ohio. So opening their mind to like other options living are pretty.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So.
Well, cool, man. Jarrod, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, we really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us for our August segment of our Year of Maction. We look forward to giving this to everybody and looking forward to catching up with you again real soon, man.
All right, man. Anytime you need me on the show, I got you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Alrighty.
All right, guys, that's going to about do it for us tonight. AJ, I had a lot of fun tonight with Jarrod.
That was a lot of fun, yeah.
A lot of good info.
It was. It's always cool to learn perspectives from different players in different sports and different levels. So it's at the end of the day, they're all athletes and they're all grinding for the same accomplishment. That's to make it to the top. And a lot of people we've spoken to over the past couple of months are people who players and coaches have made it to the top. And so it's always great hearing their story. They're hearing the story of their grind.
Absolutely. Well, AJ, did you have anything else?
I'm all set, man. My water bottle is empty. I'm thirsty.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If you get a chance, follow us on Twitter at College Sport Pod. Be sure to check us out. We're posting new content, giving some new updates, some new projects we've got in the works. Despite the Mid-American Conference and Big Ten Conference postponing their football seasons, we got a lot of things in the work. You can follow us on Facebook as well at the College Sports Connection Podcast. You can find us there. You can follow myself at SheerDumbLuck on Twitter. You can follow AJ at Roughing55. Be sure to go ahead and follow our Beard Brother Fantasy Football Podcast. They are our cousin network of the Four Beardsmen Sport Network, cranking out a lot of fantasy rankings, player moves, things like that. So be sure to check them out, give them a like, give them a follow. And guys, I think that's going to do it for us. So we will see you guys next week.
See you.